At the beginning of 2020, two young adults would vanish just 2 days apart from a truck stop in Georgia. Despite this and the strange information to follow, authorities would close one case and fail to thoroughly investigate another, leading to a large amount of questions as to what happened in this small Georgia town.
No answers.
9 years ago today.
What happened to these two young children?
Remains a mystery.
Urgent story unfolding right now. Who is missing? An unsolved murder.
"20-year-old Keeslyn Noelle Roberts was born October 22nd of 1999 and was the only child to her parents, Shannon and Eric Roberts. She was better known by her nickname Butterfly. The family lived in Dalton, Georgia, where her father ran his own trucking company called Eric Roberts Trucking. Growing up, Keeslyn was the center of her parents' world. She is remembered as having been a good kid with a big heart who participated in Color Garden school. She had so many dreams and wanted to be a marine biologist. Unfortunately, as she got older, Keeslyn would get involved with who her parents called a bad crowd, who introduced her to drugs and derailed her path. And this resulted in her sometimes ending up on the wrong side of the law. In 2018, Keeslyn was arrested and charged with 2 counts of possession of marijuana. Nearly 2 years later, in January of 2020, she was arrested and charged with the sale of methamphetamine. Despite this, Keeslyn wouldn't go a day without at least texting one of her parents. During that same beginning of January 2020, Keeslyn was living with a boyfriend who is unnamed in Chatsworth, Georgia. On January 17th of 2020, Keeslyn was scheduled to attend a probation meeting with the Whitfield County Sheriff's Office in relation to her 2018 charges. She would fail to attend, and thus a warrant for violation of probation was issued. She was last seen the following day on January 18th at the Flying J gas station and truck stop off I-75, located at 288 Resaca Beach Boulevard in Resaca, Georgia. As the narrative goes, that evening, Keeslyn had taken a friend named Chris to work at the Denny's restaurant attached to the Flying J with the intention to drive him home after work. However, when he got off of work around 10 p.m. and went outside, Keeslyn's car was there, but she was nowhere to be found. According to Keeslyn's father, Eric, this friend would then call Keeslyn and she would allegedly tell him that she would be back in a few. A 911 call would then be placed only an hour later at the Flying J/Denny's. The call was regarding a suspicious female, and it would turn out that this suspicious female was actually Keeslyn after she entered an employees-only kitchen area of the Denny's. An altercation would occur after an employee told her that she couldn't be back there, and so then 911 was called. Keeslyn would flee before authorities got there, however she left her backpack behind, which an employee would hand over to police. Inside was her wallet, debit card, driver's license, car keys, some cash, and her phone charger, meaning she no longer had her important belongings with her. 2 days later, on January 20th, Eric would receive a phone call from Keeslyn's probation officer who told him that she hadn't attended her meeting and he was being asked if he had any idea where she was. Now, I'm a little confused by this, but what was stated in an interview, Eric said that Keeslyn had been texting him that she was going to attend it. However, as the evening came, she still never made that meeting, and so the officer called him back again, letting him know, like, hey, she didn't appear. Now, what's odd to me is that at this point, Keeslyn had been missing for 2 days, just her parents didn't know yet. So did those text messages happen, or is the timeline just a bit off? I'm quite confused by that information. Let me know down below if you know the correct details. Either way, after hearing this, Eric was set off to try to find his daughter, and the first place he stopped was at her boyfriend's home. When he arrived there, her vehicle wasn't in the driveway, so he went and knocked on the door. And eventually the boyfriend did answer, and this is when Eric confronted him, asking him if he had any idea where she was, and he said that he hadn't seen her. But as Eric was walking away, the boyfriend decided to mention that Keeslyn's vehicle was parked at the Flying J. This was extremely odd to Eric because why would his daughter just leave her vehicle at the truck stop? Eric owned his own trucking company. He was very involved in that lifestyle, and a truck stop wasn't the place he imagined his daughter to just hang out. Immediately heading over to the Flying J, Eric would in fact find his daughter's white Toyota Corolla parked in the far corner of the parking lot, just as the boyfriend had said. The doors of the vehicle were locked, but inside were more of Keeslyn's belongings, including her purse. He also noted that her driver's seat was pushed farther back than she would have needed to drive the vehicle. There was also absolutely no sign of Keeslyn anywhere near and around the truck stop, so Eric called the authorities. 2 deputies would eventually arrive shortly after, but then Eric was basically told that he had to actually report his daughter missing in a different county, and it seemed to be a very confusing mess.
It irritates me very much.
Of course.
With Gordon counties, because they should have took over. It doesn't matter which county a kid lives in or what state they live in. It doesn't matter. So I take another 2 hours for the cops to get to me in Murray County to meet up with them. At that time, I've already picked up her car. I asked them if they wanted to search it, fingerprint it. No, we don't need to do that. It takes another 5 days for the detective to get this on his table and calls me and talks to me about it. Now 5 days has gone by. Nobody has questioned anybody that's Flying J in 5 days. Nobody has went down there in 5 days to ask anything about what happened to my daughter. She goes missing around 11, 12 o'clock at night. The other thing is she was taking Chris House to work that night. It worked at the Denny's and was going to come back and pick him up.
At this point, all calls to Keeslyn's phone were going straight to voicemail. And her cell phone was one of the only items of hers that hasn't been found to this day, which leads a lot of people to speculate that it was most likely on her when she disappeared. Around 45 days after Keeslyn's disappearance, the family would receive a tip from a Flying J Denny's employee, stating that there was some clothing found near a dumpster out back. Eric and Shannon would travel to the Flying J and found that, in fact, there was some clothing in a bush behind a dumpster. The specifics of the items found were not detailed. However, Shannon did confirm that one of the shirts found was Keeslyn's. After finding these items, her parents once again called the authorities, who arrived. They bagged the items. However, they were told that they couldn't perform any DNA analysis on the items, and they couldn't even do any kind of testing because no crime had been committed, which is ridiculous because Keeslyn was missing. But to make things stranger, just 2 days before Keeslyn had disappeared, 21-year-old Caleb Nathaniel Smith had also disappeared from that very same Flying J truck stop. Caleb was described as a vibrant young man with dreams and aspirations that lived in Chatsworth, Georgia. On January 16th of 2020, he was planning to visit some friends in the nearby city of Rome, Georgia. Caleb had told his grandmother prior to leaving to leave the deadbolt unlocked because he had plans on returning home that night. After leaving, he stopped at the Flying J to get gas. At 12:32 a.m., CCTV footage inside of the Denny's shows a lone male seated at a dining table. Caleb enters the Denny's dining area and seats himself at a nearby table facing the lone man. A few moments later, Caleb calls his grandmother to let her know where he is and that he didn't have enough gas to make it to Rome. He also informs her that he's going to ask the lone man at the dining area if he could have $5 for gas. Caleb then gets up and talks to the man on 2 separate occasions. It is unknown if this man gives Caleb money for the gas. After the second interaction, Caleb goes back to his table and sits down facing the man again. He then gets up and leaves the Denny's. If you want to watch the full surveillance video, I'll have it linked down below. Later that morning, Caleb's worried grandmother would drive to the Flying J, where she'd noticed Caleb's car parked on the back side of the parking lot behind the Denny's, only 5 spaces from where Keeslyn's car would later be discovered. Caleb's car was unlocked, and when she looked inside, his keys were found on the floorboard. His cell phone was in the glove box with the battery removed. His jacket was inside, and the vehicle had roughly half a tank of gas, which is strange because he had told his grandmother on the phone that he didn't have enough gas. He would then be reported missing around 5 p.m. that day. On January 16th to 17th, authorities would search the area around the truck stop, both on the ground and in the air, but their searches yielded no results. The following day, Keeslyn would vanish from that very same truck stop. But on February 2nd, after a few weeks of searching, Caleb's body would be discovered in a marshy and wooded area in the northwestern part of Hill City Road in Gordon County, near Sugar Valley, about 5 miles from where he was last seen. He was discovered by a property owner showing his land to a prospective buyer. The area described as poorly drained and heavily overgrown. It's also noted he was found barefoot and naked, but the bottoms of his feet were clean. An autopsy would reveal that there was no indications of foul play, and his cause of death would be ruled as an overdose on methamphetamines. The report reading, quote, "Per report, he was found in a moderately decomposed state, lying face up in a shallow body of water. Autopsy examination revealed no evidence of significant recent injury or natural disease process." Post-mortem toxicology testing was positive for the above-listed substance and negative for alcohol. Investigation by law enforcement revealed no suspicions of foul play. Based on information available at the time, the manner of death is certified as accident." End quote. Several shoe prints were also found around Caleb's body, yet Caleb was found completely nude without socks or shoes, and to add to that, as I said, the bottom of his feet were completely clean. There was no mud, there was no dirt, as you would have expected if he had taken his clothes off and walked into that muddy area. On top of that, his clothing has never been recovered. So does that mean that he stripped down somewhere else and was walking miles and miles naked in January where it's cold? Drugs do make people do strange things. And I have read that people have said that drugs like methamphetamines can make people really hot. It makes them strip down. It makes them do weird things you wouldn't expect. But if he was planning on coming home, how would he end up a 2 hours walk away in a marshy area like that? And again, how were the bottoms of his feet clean? And how was none of his clothing discovered then? To add to things not letting up, Caleb's mother, April, has said, quote, "I was told that my son's body had no animal bites and that he was just pale by the property owner and the Gordon County coroner. Although supposedly Caleb had been out there for 2 weeks, none of Caleb's family were ever allowed to identify his body. We had to bury Caleb in a closed casket." End quote. So that begs the question once again. If he OD'd and his feet were clean, how did he end up in this very muddy, dirty marsh? His clothing wasn't found near him, so it's not like he walked all the way there, stripped down, and died. And how did he even get to that marsh if his vehicle was left 5 miles away? Did someone pick him up and drive him to that area? Did he walk for 2 hours? When did the taking of these drugs even happen then? He had plans to go meet a friend in Rome, unless that was a lie and we're just not getting full context here. And he also had plans to return home. Again, he told his grandmother to leave the deadbolt unlocked so he could come back. There's something missing here. And then the fact that another young adult goes missing from that exact same truck stop in an eerily similar way. Vehicle found parked in the back of the parking lot, only a few spaces down from this other missing person. They've both completely vanished into thin air from that gas station, and no one understands how. There will also be, as we learn, no video footage outside of that gas station. And at first, there was a lot of speculation whether Caleb and Keeslyn's cases were connected. However, in the end, it seems like authorities don't think there's any connection. There's no similarities. Let me know what you think down below. Is it just a completely strange coincidence, or could there be something more here? It's allegedly been determined that Keeslyn and Caleb didn't know each other, but people still wonder if they may have had similar friends in common. Investigators have interviewed numerous people that knew Keeslyn as well as her boyfriend, yet to this day, we still have no answers. There seems to be no progress at this point in time, and no information regarding these interviews has ever been released. When it comes to Keeslyn's investigation, her case was handled by both the Murray and Gordon County Sheriff's Offices. Since then, it's been taken over by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or the GBI. And the local community has truly rallied behind the Roberts family. They've helped launch social media campaigns to raise awareness on Keeslyn's disappearance. They also helped organize volunteer searches. One search, which involved four-wheelers and aerial drones, spanned approximately 100 acres around the area where Caleb's body had been found. In March of 2020, some of Keeslyn's clothing was found in a fern bush behind a dumpster in the parking lot. After this, a second search took place in a wooded area near the Flying J. They've also tried to spread awareness in many ways, such as putting her face and her information up on the trucks. There have also been numerous sightings of Keeslyn or a woman that looks like Keeslyn at various truck stops around the United States, in cities including South Bend, Indiana, Dallas, Texas, and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Eric tried to put up Keeslyn's missing persons flyer at the Flying J truck stop. However, he was told he couldn't. There's also been a lot of controversy around the lack of lighting and lack of surveillance footage outside of the building, because it turns out that the back of the building where their cars were parked and left, there's absolutely no footage out there. It's a blind spot. And it makes you question, who would know that this was a blind spot? Is, again, just a complete coincidence that both of these missing persons vehicles were parked in a blind spot at this truck stop? Or is someone involved, maybe, that knows this? Eric has also offered a $10,000 award, no questions asked, on information that could lead to his daughter's location. In order to better fund it, he started a GoFundMe, which has since been shut down. Keeslyn's parents are the type of parents that any daughter would want if they went missing. They have spent the last 5 years rallying for answers. They've also been very vocal about the case. They have done YouTube interviews, they've done media interviews, they've tried everything they can to try to find their daughter. Just trying to get her case out there as far as they can go so that hopefully the people with answers are reached. He stated that he has a hard time believing Keeslyn would have just disappeared on her own and feels that there are people out there who know what happened but aren't talking. He's also expressed concerns with how certain police departments have handled his daughter's case and claims Detective Eric White is not doing all he can to find his daughter, stating that the sheriff's office did not make efforts to obtain security footage from the Flying J or check Keeslyn's phone records. Her family has had to go and pull the records themselves. He's also shared that he's provided the detectives a list of persons of interest that he's compiled, along with other information, but he feels like this information isn't being investigated. Eric's fears are also reciprocated by those on social media who also feel like due to Keeslyn's criminal charges, her case isn't being taken seriously, which is something that we're aiming to also try to help stop on this channel. It doesn't really matter what someone's past is, they still deserve to be found, they still have family that loves them. They still have family that wants answers, and these people still need justice. That means that there are still criminals out there walking these streets that committed possibly a heinous act that have just gotten away with it. And would you want that to happen to your child? Do you want the risk that these individuals are still walking your street? That's a big thing to think about. Eric saying, quote, "I feel like they violated my daughter's civil rights by not following through. It's not right. A missing person is a missing person." End quote. Due to all of that, and I am sure more, Keeslyn's family went ahead and hired their own PI, but they have not shared what the PI has uncovered. It's also noted that they have received hundreds of tips of what may have happened to Keeslyn in the days leading up to her disappearance. Meanwhile, Caleb's family has also been fighting for answers. As we discussed, Caleb was found both naked and barefoot, yet his feet were allegedly clean. He was also found a 2 hours walk away from the Flying J where his car was left. The land he was found on was also said to be private property, and a bushfire was also reported to have been set there that day. 911 was called, and the fire crews were sent out. This fire was later ruled an arson. So it's very interesting that a missing person's dead body was found on this land, and then also an arson fire was set, all around the same time frame. In celebration of Keeslyn's 21st birthday, the family held a candlelight vigil at the 11th Avenue Baptist Church in Dalton. A Facebook page called Finding Keeslyn was also created by Eric in hopes of spreading the word and sharing information. Another has also been created for Caleb. I'll have them both linked down below. Please go show both of these families support. 3 years into her disappearance, her parents would once again speak to the media.
3 years ago, Keeslyn Roberts seemed to vanish from this truck stop in Gordon County without a trace. Police found her car here with all of her belongings inside. Her parents tell me they feel they're closer to answers than ever before.
Just to keep everyone praying and looking.
That's all Eric and Shannon Roberts feel they can do these days. 3 years ago Friday, they would visit their daughter Keeslyn at her new home, tell her they love her, and never see her again. She would be 23 years old today.
She had so many dreams. She wanted to be a marine biologist, and she got detoured.
The Roberts say their daughter fell in with the wrong crowd, getting caught up with drugs. They say it derailed her life and may be the reason she seemed to vanish into thin air.
I think the answers will come out on the people that's involved.
We just don't understand exactly what happened, just where it went wrong.
Keeslyn was last known to be at the Flying J truck stop in Resaca, Georgia. That's where police found her car. Inside were her keys, her book bag, and her wallet, but she was nowhere to be found. Since then, her parents have hired a private investigator. They say they've received hundreds of tips for what may have happened in the days leading up to her disappearance.
And the things that we're hearing, we don't know if those are 100% proof. It's just what's going around and being said.
Neither the Roberts nor investigators said they were able to share what the investigation has uncovered so far. The GBI is leading the investigation. The Murray County Sheriff's Office is assisting. Sheriff Jimmy Davenport could not share where the focus of the search is right now.
I really feel like we're close to something. Just don't know exactly what.
3 years later, Keeslyn's disappearance still tears them apart. They hope a new year will bring new hope, that 2023 will be the year they finally get answers to what happened to their little girl.
I keep trusting God that he's going to bring her home safely, and I can't give up. I cannot give up.
Both of these families are still fighting for answers 5 years later. There's also a petition at the moment to fight to reopen Caleb's case. I'll have that link down below. Please go sign that petition. Keeslyn's case really reminds me of the Layla Santinello case, another case that I covered in the past. I definitely recommend checking that case out as well. Her mother is still fighting for answers years later. But it's very similar to me because it's a young girl that got caught up in some bad things, that was last seen acting erratically, and then would simply vanish without a trace. In both cases, while police were looking for them. It's very, very strange. But what do you all think happened here? How can two young adults just vanish in both very strange ways from the same truck stop this 2 days apart, and one be found deceased in a very odd way? From what I've read, from what locals are saying, there's a lot more going on here than any of us truly know. But what we do know is that someone knows something, and they're just not speaking up. But let's take one more good look at Keeslyn. At the time of her disappearance, Keeslyn stood around 5'6" tall and weighed approximately 125 pounds. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, and she has a tattoo of a sea turtle on her lower right arm. Her ears are gauged, and the holes are large enough to be noticed with the spacers removed. If you have any information on Keeslyn's disappearance or Caleb's death, please speak up. Please contact the authorities. I'll have the information down below. If you know something, please say something, even if you think it doesn't matter. That information might solve this case. My heart goes out to both of these families. I truly hope answers come, and I'll be in the comment section chatting with you all. Let's have a conversation down below on how you feel about these cases. Do you think they're related? And as always, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.